Hi, I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I have homeschooled all of my children. In this video, I'm going to be answering the question, how much does it cost to homeschool? There are multiple different ways that a person homeschools, so the cost can vary. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about what some of the key costs are and how you can control some of your homeschooling costs. So let's talk about how much things cost when you're homeschooling. There are a lot of things you don't have to buy when you're homeschooling, such as backpacks and school clothes, although the children do grow, so you're going to want to buy them some clothes. You just don't have to buy a lot of really impressive clothes. There's other things for school supplies that you might not need that they need over at the school, but then there are some other supplies you might want to have on hand that they don't use at the school. So what types of things might you need to buy then that maybe you wouldn't buy if your child goes to school? Some things that you have to buy are like science experiment stuff, right? So if you are going to be doing some sort of experiment where you're blowing something up or you're building something, well, you're going to be buying the sugar cubes and the ammonia and stuff like that. But you know, that stuff's pretty cheap. It's not such a big deal. Other things that you might be buying are books. In fact, that's going to be your biggest expense is books. Now, textbooks, they'll cost you an arm and a leg, but not every homeschooler uses textbooks. In fact, I'm one of the homeschoolers that very rarely uses any textbooks. So textbooks can vary in cost, but usually for a regular textbook on something, you're going to be spending anywhere between $50 and maybe even $90 to $100. I know that oftentimes the science books that I was buying, because we did the Brienne Builders science books for our children. In fact, they had a great science curriculum for when they are in the junior high years where it takes science through the ages. Each one of those books was probably around $50 or something like that. And then as we got to the larger, the high school chemistry, high school biology, those types of books, we probably were spending around $90 maybe for answer keys and everything to come with them. Also, your math books are going to cost you a bit if you want to do math books. I don't think children need to have textbooks until they hit around late junior high or high school. This is just me. Everybody does it different, and you'll have to decide how you want to do homeschooling. In fact, I have a whole website that is all about how I do homeschooling. It's called heartofhomeschool.net. If you want to go there, you can learn all kinds of things about homeschooling, how I've done it at my house, and how some of my good friends have done it too. In fact, we've been very successful. I speak at homeschool conferences all over the world and tell people how to set up a great homeschool environment. Of course, they also always are asking me to talk about parenting because that's what I'm the most known for with my teaching self-government parenting stuff. So as a homeschooler, I spent the majority of my book money on books that the children would read or that I would read to them. So these would be classics, books like The Chosen or Lonesome Gods, Little House on the Prairie series, Anne of Green Gables series, the Little Maids series. The list goes on and on. There's so many. I spent my money on books like that and books about education because I knew as a homeschool mom, the most important thing that I could be learning was how people learn. That is a vital lesson for me. So my own curriculum came at a cost as well, but it was usually just the cost of a book, which is anywhere between $10 and $30 or $40, give or take. I'm going to tell you about my most important book that I have bought for my homeschool, but before I do that, I would like to invite you to subscribe to this channel. I come up with new videos on here every single day, and you are not going to want to miss them. In fact, many of the videos are about family life. They are about communication and good relationships, and they are going to enrich your entire homeschool experience. So subscribe now so that you get even more help. There is an important homeschool book. In fact, I think it's a vital homeschool book. It's Webster's 1828 Dictionary. So that dictionary gives definitions and understanding of language and concepts that truly has been lost. In fact, it just enriches education to such a great degree. And that dictionary is a lot of money, but you can get free versions of that. In fact, if money is tight and you don't have room for books or something like that, then you can use Kindle books. You can go to the online page for Webster's 1828 Dictionary and look up words there. There's just something about holding the book for me. So at my house, I have bookcases all over the place because books truly are a part of our family culture. In fact, a good homeschooler makes their homeschool just become part of their family culture. That's just who we are as the Peck family. There are other expenses if you want to take some sort of an online learning program. Of course, there's going to be a cost for that. If your children are older and need to have maybe computers and you don't already have one as part of your family, there could be a cost for something like that too. But I've got to tell you something. The children do not need to do computer-based learning until they are much older. In fact, I did not have my children do online learning until they hit their high school years. And even then, we kept it to a minimum. So they would type papers and occasionally would take some classes. Once they hit about 16 or 17, then they oftentimes would start some college classes, which did require, of course, having access to a computer and making sure that it was a pretty decent one. But honestly, that's the very end of their homeschool experience. When they're younger, they don't have to have their own computer or anything like that. In fact, sometimes having their own devices could be a distraction to your homeschool. So you'll want to keep that in mind. Now, some people have co-ops that they join. Many co-ops are free and they're just groups of families that get together. But sometimes co-ops will have a price attached to the co-ops. They may even have prices for classes, but you don't have to take them. So you choose how you want to control your costs. The long story short on how much does homeschool cost is that it costs whatever you need it to cost. It does not need to break the bank. If you are an innovative person, a person who likes to read and discuss and create projects based on the things that you're learning together as a family, if you like to go to your library and search for good stuff, you really don't have to buy that much. I mean, we're talking paper, pencils, basic craft supplies, unless you're going to get more into fancy arts and crafts or go on super expensive field trips. But for most people, even the field trip destinations like hikes and observing certain museums oftentimes are free. There are many museums and things like that in most cities and areas that are actually taxpayer funded and would be completely free for your family to enjoy. And don't forget the fun things like learning how to make your own kites and just going out and flying them, or folding paper boats and sending them down the local stream or river in your neighborhood. As far as controlling your cost goes, I definitely need to mention used books and curriculum sales. So many homeschool conferences will have curriculum sales associated with their local homeschool conference. So this is time where homeschoolers who have been around for a long time are cycling through curriculum. Maybe they're done using curriculum because their children have grown, or maybe they bought too much curriculum and they're scaling back. And so they offer their curriculum at a really affordable price. Sometimes they'll even give it to you for free. In fact, if you go onto some social media groups for the homeschool people in your area, you'll see people offering stuff for free all the time. Homeschoolers know the value of what they have invested their time and money into, and they don't want it to go to waste. So if they're done homeschooling, they are more than happy to pass it along to somebody else. This brings me to one of the best tips that I have for you, and that is that you can use other people as a resource. Many homeschoolers have created curriculums for how they teach certain subjects. In fact, many of them them will photocopy their curriculums, their binders. They'll share them with you. So just make friends with people. Ask them, how did you do that? Do you have a book about that? Can I borrow your book for a week? Now make sure if you're going to borrow somebody's book that you bring it back. I've had bad experience about that, I'll just tell you. So bring the book back, but use those books, extract the ideas. You'll be able to see what they've underlined. That means that you know the real good stuff. You could probably get through it way fast. So if you make friends, that will actually save you a lot of time and a lot of money. There is no need to stress about how much homeschooling costs. If it is right for your family, if you feel compelled to do it, then you should act on that. Don't overthink it. Don't try to convince yourself not to do it because of little things like money. If you're meant to do it and you take action, the money will work itself out. I promise, because I have homeschooled all 4 of my children, and there were times when we hardly had 2 nickels to rub together, but it always worked out. It's just the day-to-day things you do together as a family, the discussions that make for such enriching learning, the type of learning that they cannot get anywhere else. If you want to be a successful homeschooler, if I could share one of my special secrets with you, and that is self-government. If you want your homeschool to run smoothly, if you want to not be overwhelmed at the end of the day, teach your family the first lesson for homeschool success, which is self-government. Teach them how to follow instructions, accept no answers, accept consequences, and disagree appropriately. Have a calm and united environment. Decrease the stress and anxiety for you and for them, and then you'll be able to go the distance. If you would like to learn more about teaching self-government, I've got a free class for you. Here's a homeschooler that you can learn from. I'm happy to share. This class is called The Expectation Trap versus the Cycle for Success. I give this class at many homeschool conferences. Think about your day and how it's going right now for you, and insert it into these cycles and see if you can't improve your day-to-day interactions with your children, which will then improve your entire homeschool. Click on the link to the Expectation Trap video now and be prepared for transformation.